So in the last lecture, we stopped at the metrics in cryptocurrencies. In this lecture, we'll see the mining mechanics and economics of mining, the Bitcoin economics, and if time permits, we'll see some more related concepts related to it. So mining mechanics, how the miner will choose the block and how he will go for the mining of the block. First of all, join the network. Since it is a public network, join it. Listen for the transactions, because for every transaction that was generated, it will be flooded in the network. Hence, listen to the transactions. Validate all proposed transactions. Whatever the proposed transactions are there in the network, just to validate all the transactions. That is as a miner. Listen for new blocks. Maintain the blockchain. And one thing is, the miner has to be updated, keep updating his blockchain, because the miner should maintain a full node and always the blockchain must be updated. Otherwise, he may not be knowing what is the previous block hash with which he can go for finding of the nonce. Hence, listen for new blocks, maintain the blockchain. When a new block is proposed, validate it. Assemble a new block, new valid block. Find the nonce to make your block valid. And once the nonce was identified, just to broadcast that particular solution, so that everybody has to accept that new block. So if everybody accepted new block, then the miner will get some profit. This is what the general scenario of mining process. While coming to the mining, first of all, we have seen based upon the difficulty that the hash rate depends. If you look at on the right top corner, the miner has to identify the block. For that, the simple program has been written here like this. While nonce is less than max some value, if SHA-256 of SHA-256 of block, the Bitcoin blockchain uses the double hashing method. That means not single hash you are supposed to do, that the miner has to do, but the double hashing he has to do. So when he go for double hashing means two times of the hash. So whatever the hash rate we have identified is of one hash only. But whatever the hash of hash means double hashing, two hashes. So it is a very big task. If two hashes has been done, then whatever the nonce that will find that nearest solution or maybe the given question, given challenge, then that particular nonce will be returned. This is the general procedure. But if you look at it, if we use CPUs, throughput of the CPU is very on the very high end processor. If you look at it, maybe of 10 to 20 megahertz, maybe of 224. So that means 10 to 20 megahertz means 2 power 24 hashes per second it may generate. That means to mine a block of difficulty or some big difficulty, it will go up to 139,461 years to find a block. If you use the today's difficulty, that is the reason these CPUs are not that much relevant for mining purpose. When the blockchain was invented, that is Bitcoin was introduced, at the time CPU, high-end CPUs may be used for mining, but later on it's of no use. Then we have moved on to the GPUs, graphics processing units, GPUs. GPUs designed for high performance actually. High parallelism and throughput will be there in GPUs. If you look at on the right hand side, GPU stack, look at several GPUs have been placed here. Several GPUs have been placed in parallel, and once the task has been given, all these GPUs will work on this. So GPU mining, GPU is designed for high performance, high parallelism and throughput. The advantage of the GPU is it is easily available and easy to set up also. Parallel ALUs will be there, and bit specification instructions can drive many from one CPU. You can work with one CPU itself, but you can have any connections, any number of GPU connections, and also can overclock. Overclock is nothing but if the processor speed has been given like this, 2 gigahertz, and uh, the minimum speed is of 2 gigahertz, and maximum it can go up to 2.8 gigahertz, like that. Usually the CPUs will never work at the top rate speed, but overclocking is nothing but you are making to work at top rate, that is top speed. So if the specification has been given that it is 2.8 gigahertz, it never work at 2.8 gigahertz. It always work at 2.3, 2.4, like that. Maybe sometimes 2, like that. If too much work is there, then it may go up to 2.67, like that. And it is having the minimum range and maximum range. Overclock is nothing but reaching the maximum processing range. So this is what is called overclocking. Usually in this overclocking will be locked in the Intel processors, but it is there available in the GPU. So we are going to use that. Disadvantage is somewhat it's a poor utilization of hardware, and also it generates more heat, so poor cooling, large power draw, so more power will be drawn with this, and a few boards to hold multiple GPUs. So even though you use a GPU stack, the very good GPU card will run for 20 to 200 megahertz, that is 2 power 27. Anyhow, it will take around 173 years to find a block in the current scenario if you use it. So that is the reason we'll move on to we have then in the later in the mid around 2013, 14, like that, they moved on to the mining hardware, FPGAs, field programmable gate arrays. So in this, the FPGAs were arranged as a stack like this and connected to the computers. And this is the total server computer. For this FPGAs are added because these FPGAs has to perform only hashing, SHA-256. No other work will be done by this. So advantages is high performance than the GPUs, excellent performance on bitwise operations, better cooling, extensive customization and optimization. While coming to the disadvantages are high power drawn than the GPUs. So FPGAs will draw more power, poor optimization for 32-bit addresses. So they work for the higher bits. So fewer hobbyists with sufficient expertise. FPGA requires some special training, including the installation, programming, working with that. So you will not find some experts in this area. You need to train them. More expensive than GPUs, obviously costly than GPUs. Marginal performance, cost advantage over the GPU will be there. So still FPGAs are not that much sufficient because 2 power 30 hash rate means around 25 years. So from so many years, like 139461 years to we brought down to 173 years. Then with the FPGAs, we brought down to 25 years. It must be brought down to the seconds or minutes at least. That is the reason we have moved on to the ASIC computers. ASIC computers is nothing but application specific instruction circuits. Application specific is nothing but what is the application you are supposed to do? You have to find the hashes. This is the only application, no other application is there. So application specific, only performing the hashes. This is the only performing of the hashes. This is the only application you are supposed to do. No other work you are supposed to do, only this is the work. So application specific instruction circuits, here are some examples. Anti-miner S5, anti-miner S7, anti-miner S9. These are very costly. Okay, these are it will be in lakhs. So this is of around 2 years back hardware. Now the hardware was changed. Okay, not only one exhaust, you will find so many exhausts for that. So special purpose, approaching known limits on feature sizes, less than 10x performance improvement expected. Designed to be run constantly for life. That means they continuously work without stopping. Require significant expertise, long lead times, perhaps the fastest chip development ever. These are the features of the ASIC computers. What this ASIC computer will do is it will only perform the specific application like hashing. That's all. But still, by using these ASIC computers, we can bring down to hours, not to the minutes. Hence, why can't we add these ASIC computers so that we can form the mining center? So this is called a professional mining center. Here you can see they require some special power for that special equipment, special infrastructure, especially for mining purpose. So after looking at all these things, we'll feel that what is this foolish thing? Why you are supposed to do all this mining and all for Bitcoin? Why can't be? It is somewhat little bit easier. So everyone will think, but Bitcoin has done very good work, but they fail to address this issue. Still, they don't have any alternative except to mine. So hence this mining will go on till the profit of getting the block is more. So till the time it will go. If it is above the limit, it is going out of the hand, then no one can afford this much mining work. Otherwise, the difficulty has to be come down. Then only this mining process will go on. So that is the reason. Later on, if you look at the difficulty with this is the energy. How to supply this energy to this much big mining stations? That is what the big problem occurred. So energy aspects of Bitcoin mining, embedded energy used to manufacture mining chips and other equipments should decrease over time, return to scale. So these are the actually energy aspects in which you require more electricity. Especially this electricity is to run the processors. So if you look at a laptop which may be of around which may draw around 45 watt current, a 45 watt power supply is required. This is of maybe of i5 processor or i7 processor like that. But if you look at a high-end processor, obviously it will draw more power. Like gaming computers, they need around 180 watt power supply. Otherwise, see, you'll plug the 180 watt power supply, 180 watt power adapters. Otherwise, they will not work. So, gaming computers, these are far high advanced or far advanced than the gaming computers or something. So, it requires more energy. So, usually, obviously, whenever it draws more energy, more work is done. Obviously, more heat is generated, hence more cooling is required for that. Required to protect the equipment cost more. So in order to cool it also, again, air conditioning is required and many other things are required. So according to thermodynamics limits, any non-reversible computation must consume a minimum amount of energy. Any non-reversible computations must consume a minimum amount of energy. So hence, we always go for the renewable energy. But here, once which is not renewable, which is not reversible computation, it must consume some minimum amount of energy. That is the reason, especially if you look at in the bitwise, each bit change is required kT log 2 joules. Joules is the amount of time that power is supplied. That is joules is equal to time into watt. That is joules. So that much joules will be consumed for the non-reversible computations. While coming to the SH256, we all know that this is the one-way hash function. Once you get the message digest, you cannot get the original message. So SHA-256 is irreversible, hence energy consumption is inevitable. So with this principle, since you are using the SHA-256 computation, obviously the energy consumption is inevitable. Hence, we are going to have an idea that why can't small miners come together to form a mining pool? This is what the concept of mining pools. Finding a block with a hash rate is uncertain. That is the reason the goal is pool participants. That is, pool participants all attempt to mine a block with the same coin-based recipient. That means whenever the block is about to be formed, So it will be informed by the mining manager or mining pool administrator to the one who joined in the mining pool, and that they will give the contribution. Based upon the contribution, the block reward, whatever they get from that amount will be shared. So why can't it is just like carpooling or bike pooling like that? Why instead of going why only one miner? Why can't two, three members can join together as a collaboration? And why can't they go for mining the things? So send money to key owned by pool manager. So here it is just like here a pool manager is there. Hey folks, here is our next block to work on. That information will be sent to the mining pool. So here one person will be sitting at one corner and another person is sitting at another corner. Like that, this mining pool is going to be maintained. Now the mining manager, that is pool manager, the one who started this pool, has informed the miners that okay, you are supposed to find a block with this many leading zeros. Then the miner one will do some task and will announce the nonce regularly. And second miner will also do some task. And if he is reaching to the answer, then he will inform the particular nonce. So like that, the third miner will also do. The one who joined in the mining pool will do this task and will give the updations regularly. So distribute revenues to members based on how much work they have performed, and that much amount will be given to the miners, in which minus a cut for pool manager. Since the pool was maintained by pool manager, he required a lot of infrastructure to do this. So pool manager will be having some commission or fee or this kind of thing. That much will be deducted, and the rest of the amount will be given to the miner based upon the work they have done. That means if you look at how do we know that how much work members performed? So this is what is called a near valid answer. Near valid answer will be checked here by proving work with the near valid blocks. That means they have to find 20 leading zeros, for example. So this person has done up to 19 leading zeros. Then okay, this is almost nearest solution. That is almost we are reaching to the solution. That means if you use nonce more than the value that miner one has done, so obviously that that another miner may find the chance if you use more than that nonce. So this is what the idea basically with which this money will be, or the share will be given to the miners. So if you look at here, this is the thing, like for example, this is the first hash, second hash, third hash, fourth hash. This is the mining process as going on. You look at third miner in the mining pool has found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11 leading zeros. And fifth miner found also 11 leading zeros. Sixth miner found 2 leading zeros. But in case of 6th, 7th, 8th miner found 1, 2, 3, here 10, 4, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 leading zeros. So based upon the work they have done, the share will be given to the miners in the mining pool. So this is the way pools will be maintained by using some specialized pool protocols. They will be having a pool software will be there, pool protocols will be there. Based on that, this mining happens. So mining pool protocol, if you look at API for fetching blocks, submitting shares. So for that, Stratum is one mining pool protocol, and get work, get block share. These are the APIs, especially for fetching the blocks and submitting the shares. Proposal for standardization with a Bitcoin improvement proposal. So this all was proposed actually. Increasingly important, some hardware support is also required for coordinating with the mining pool, because the mining manager and mining person should also use the same software, and that along via the software, the instructions will be given, or instruction will come, and based upon the instruction, the miner has to perform some work and submit his work periodically. Especially the nonce has to be submitted periodically to the pool manager, so that so that the pool manager will come to know what is the latest work done, and how many leading zeros they have identified, these kind of things. So for that, some protocols they have followed. So we are not discussing those protocols, just I am giving the description of that. Okay, here are the APIs for fetching the blocks and submitting the shares. The main thing is mining economics. This mining economics is nothing but how the amount will be shared among the block reward or transaction fees was shared among the mining pool. That is what we call mining economics here. So each mining pool contains hundreds or thousands of miners connected through special pool coordination protocol. Let B is the block reward minus pool fee. So if somebody has joined a mining pool, obviously they have to first of all they have to sign off the terms and conditions that this is the mining fee and this is the pool fee and this is the block reward you will get, this is the transaction fee. So clear terms and conditions will be there. They have to sign off. They have to get accept the terms and conditions. Then they can get into the mining pool. Let B be the block reward minus pool fee. That means this B is the block reward minus pool fee. Pool fee will be taken by the pool manager, and obviously the block reward of 3 BTC or something will be there. P is equal to 1 by D is the probability of finding a block in shared attempt, and D is the difficulty, block difficulty. If the difficulty increases, the probability decreases. So P is equal to 1 by D is the probability of finding a block in a shared attempt, and D is the block difficulty. Now the first model, this is the very elementary model, first model of sharing the reward is pay per share model. Pay per share is like that: share of miner R is equal to, this is the share, B into, that is the block reward minus pool fee, into 1 by the probability of identifying the block. So this is on the basis of this, the reward will be awarded, provided to the miner. This is the first model. Next model, proportional share model. So payments are made once the pool finds the block. The miner share will be given like this: R is equal to B into small n by capital N. Small n is the amount of miner share. That means how the miner contributed, and based on that the miner share. That means whether he found only 2 leading zeros or 10 leading zeros or 6 leading zeros, based on that what is his share or what is his contribution. Capital N is the amount of all shares in the round. So based upon that the amount will be decided. Previously it is a unique. Okay, it is a very simple, that probability. So that means everyone will get the equal share actually. But here it is a proportional share. How much work you have done, that based on that this amount will be given to the miner. Pay per last n shares. So this is another model, PPLNS. It is similar to the proportional model, but in this miner's reward is calculated on the basis of last n shares. N may be decided like for how well he has done for the last 10 blocks. Okay, how he has done well for the last 20 blocks, 30 blocks. That is what the last n shares. So from last n shares, he is consistently giving you a near optimal value, that is 19 leading zeros or 20 leading zeros. Out of 48 leading zeros, he may be giving up to 30, 32, 35. Consistently he is giving. Then based on that, this block reward will be distributed to that miner. So the advantage of this mining pools is even a smaller miner can also participate. If I have a small that is ASIC computer, I may also join the mining pool. Whether I will get or not, that is the thing. Even though if I get at least one time in entire year, that also sufficient for me to have the mining pool, mining option, as a mining option. Even if I get a 0.25 bitcoins also per year, that is also okay for us. So that is also a profitable one, because now the one bitcoin is around 33 lakhs like that. If you get a 0.25 also, it is more than sufficient. So just like that, that is by 4. Okay. So this is what the small miner can participate. So predictable mining. Predictable mining means nothing but a mining manager will know whether we can mine this block or not. This is a predictable mining because of the miner's strength in the mining pool. Based upon that, they will assess what could be the predictability of the mining the block. The main disadvantage is leading to centralization. Obviously, only who can afford to become a mining manager, only very few will be there. No one will establish that much infrastructure and will go for that. So obviously, if very few members will be there, maybe in tens or hundreds, not less than hundreds may be there in the entire world, who will maintain this pooling and all. So obviously, it will become a centralization. It leads to centralization. Also discourages miners for running complete mining software, because here miners will not be given opportunity to perform the entire mining process, because the miners are the part of the pool. Whatever the pool manager say, the miner has to follow. There is no freedom for the each miner to find a block and mine it. Obviously, the block finding and transaction validations, everything will be done by the pool manager level itself. But the pool manager only will give you the task to find out the nonce. So he don't have any freedom of choosing the transaction validation and all these things. So this is what the disadvantages of mining pools. So here, slushpool.com, English/home. This is the website. This is the world's largest mining pool in the for the Bitcoin network. You may refer to this website to know more about the mining terms and conditions, economics terms and conditions, sharing terms and conditions, this kind of things. And if you have the ASIC computer with you, you are happy to join. You can also happily join this network and accept the terms and conditions. Have a Bitcoin account. Then you can also join, because the amount will come in the terms of Bitcoins only. No local amount will become, or country-wise amount, for example, country-wise currency. This kind of things will not come. The amount will be given only in terms of Bitcoins. Now we'll see some attacks in Bitcoin network. The first attack is, we'll see this particular scenario: block withholding attack. This block withholding attack, rules that govern pool mining. A pool's revenue are proportional to the number of Bitcoin blocks that its member mine, measured as a fraction of total Bitcoins mined in that period. A miner's reward are proportional to the number of shares submitted as a fraction of total shares submitted by all of the pool. This is the way how the mining share will be given. Now, miners can easily create numerous pseudo identities, because how the pool manager will know that he is the miner, because we'll submit the public key, public address. But we have already seen that we can generate any number of public addresses we want. In such cases, miner can easily create numerous pseudo identities. This is called Sybil attack. Sybil attack means one can generate many number of false identities, each contributing a very small amount of mining power. Now I will join as a member to into the mining pool. Now I can generate multiple pseudo identities, and I may contribute some amount. I may contribute some mining power. Okay, this each and every identity may contribute something. In such a cases, how to identify this one? And if anyone has really found the block, then what is the guarantee that he will give the nonce to the pool manager? He may hold the block and he may voluntarily release that block, because he has created many pseudo identities, and with one pseudo identity he may really listen to the block instead of bypassing the pool manager. With one pseudo identity he may join the network. So this kind of things will happen. So therefore, pools can't easily detect if a miner is withholding valid block or not, and cannot punish a miner for doing so also, because uh, there is no there is no condition. If there exists condition like that, then that is a different story. But in general, no one can punish the miner, because uh, one can have any number of participations. Like I may become a member to one pool. I may have my independent pool. That is up to my level as it is. No one can ask me to punish, because at the same time the person don't know, the pool manager don't know who is the miner, because he never see his face, he never do any kind of personal interaction kind of thing. Everything will be totally based upon the public addresses. Hence, there is no chance of punishing the miner also. So this is what the main problem in the Bitcoin network. So anyhow, the mining process will go based upon the trust and based upon the hardware that you are having. And some more attacks like this double spending. Obviously, double spending is successfully dealt in the Bitcoin. It is a successful use of same fund twice. Obviously, the solution was made in the Bitcoin like this. Transactions are irreversible. Once you made the transaction, you cannot revoke it. Transaction can be validated against existing blockchain. So these are the two checks that will make you to stop the double spending. And here is a Sybil attack. The attacker attempts to fill the network with the clients under its control. To avoid this, the Bitcoin will follow one technique: diversify the connections. That will be done like this. Bitcoin allows outbound connection to one IP per /16 subnet IP addresses. That means out of /16 means one subnet of 16 by 16. Out of these many computers, only one computer will be given the mining option. So you can have any number of IP addresses, but only one IP address per one subnet will be given the mining option. So that means if an attacker used multiple IP addresses, multiple identities, and want to join, obviously multiple identities means he has to work on multiple IP addresses. So in such a cases, the Bitcoin will allow the connection to be, or the mining option will be given only to the one IP address per 16 subnet. That is 16 subnet is, that is a option. So you know the subnetting options by 16, by 24, by 32, this kind of options you have studied in the computer networks. So this is the technique that will follow to avoid the Sybil attacks in the Bitcoin blockchain. So this can be withstanded till 51%, till 50% of the blockchain network is malicious. Once it is crossed, then this cannot be. This is not a perfect solution. Other attacks are denial of service attacks, especially aims at making the network to deny the service, like sending unnecessary data, unnecessary blocks. So thereby the entire network is busy in identifying that particular block hash and all these kind of things. So unnecessarily sending some dummy blocks, okay, these kind of things. So hence here some conditions, some limitations have been made here. No forwarding of orphan block. If any orphan block point, then no need to send that particular orphan block. Disconnect a peer that is sending too many messages. If any peer node is sending too many messages, then just disconnect the node. If a peer node is not at all sending a message, automatically the Bitcoin network will forget after 3 hours. Limit the size of the block only to 1 MB. The reason for limiting the size to 1 MB is, this is the one, to not to have any congestion in the network. If too much congestion is there, obviously denial of service may happen. That means the malicious peer can generate fake blocks, or maybe creating too much size blocks, and he may create a congestion in the network. So that is the reason, limit the size of the block to 1 MB, and also limit the size of each script that will run under the blockchain network to maximum of 1000 bytes. So these are the some remedies they have taken to avoid the main attacks in the Bitcoin blockchain. And one more thing is use of the proof of work has monopoly problem. Monopoly problem means only few pooling managers will be having the control of mining the block, which will become monopoly only. Only few members will be there. Whatever they say, everyone has to follow it, and also require high power computation. So these are the main problems and also attacks in the Bitcoin blockchain network, especially related to the mining process. So far, we have seen the Bitcoin, that is mining economics. Now we'll see economics of Bitcoin. So economics, whenever you study any economics subject, first thing is you'll get demand supply. The Bitcoin is also like that only. The primary forces of Bitcoin valuation is totally depending upon the market. Bitcoin is just like other market product whose value is decided based on supply and demand. We all know that there are only 21 million Bitcoins available. The number of Bitcoins is 21 only. From the 21 million Bitcoins, the entire work is going on. We have, so far, no one has minted all 21 million Bitcoins. It will take at least another 100 years to mint all the Bitcoins. So hence, it is not a now that it has not reached the maximum limit. So two categories of demand in the Bitcoin will be like this. First one is transactional demand. That is Bitcoin as a legal tender. If any country announces the Bitcoin is a legal tender, obviously they use the Bitcoins as just like how we use digital currency in the UPI payments or Phone Pay or Google Pay. The people starts using the Bitcoins. When the people started using the Bitcoins, recently in France, there is a big issue has happened. They have announced the Bitcoin as a legal tender, and the number of transactions that will happen per hour are maximum limited to 60, 70. But if everyone pays in terms of Bitcoins for every small transaction, like just purchasing the vegetables or this kind of things, then how many transactions has to be validated, and how the merchant will get the confirmation that this transaction is included in the blockchain. So it is a very difficult task. In France recently it was happened, and so much violence was happened. Just simply they burned the so many things there. It became a big issue there because of the legal tender. This is when the countries allows the Bitcoin as the legal tender. That is the reason a country like a very densely populated country like India has not allowed the Bitcoin as a legal tender. The main problem is the transaction, it cannot meet the transaction demand. So because if more number of transactions are there, obviously the Bitcoin value also increases. Next one is speculation demand. Speculators will simply speculate that you invest in Bitcoin, you will get so much money, you will get that one, this one, this one. So they will almost eat your brain like anything until you invest something in Bitcoin. So these are the speculations. So speculators speculate the Bitcoin as growing or falling to make profits, these kind of things. Mostly Bitcoin valuation currently fall under this category. The Bitcoin value is growing only because of the speculation today. Because in this entire world, around 195 countries are there. Among all these countries, maybe one or two small countries and maybe two or three areas where the Bitcoin is a legal tender. In such a cases, the first category, that is what the transactional demand, is not at all a big issue to have the valuation for the BTC. But the current valuation is totally based upon the speculation demand. On the other hand, supply factor depends on the Bitcoin mining. Anyhow, there are 21 million Bitcoins. To mint all the 21 billion Bitcoins, it will take around more than 150 years. So that is the reason. On the other hand, there is no supply factor for the depends on the Bitcoin mining. So in all these factors, only one factor that is relevant today to have the Bitcoin valuation is speculation demand. As more people invest, automatically the transactional demand comes. So the transactional demand is the general demand to have the valuation. So in order to come to the transactional demand, usually the market forces, what they do is they will create speculations. When speculations have done, then automatically many people will come, or sometimes many people may fall under this trap. And when they fall under this trap, automatically transaction demand starts. When the transaction demand starts, automatically the one who is in the field of transaction demand or keeping of the transaction demand will get benefited. So at the time there is no alternative for the any government, especially except to make the BTC as a legal tender. So in order to reach this, this will be used as a second alternative. Okay. So with this, they will reach this. Whenever it reach this, already who are holding the good number of Bitcoins will become richer and richer in the country, in the world. These are all the kind of speculation. It's just like recently just before the lockdown time, they said that in our country, okay, the salt reserves were gone. There is no salt reserves. There is a speculation came. Everyone is rushing to the supermarkets and purchasing the salt. The entire country is surrounded by three oceans, big oceans. How people will believe that there is a salt crisis in the country? It's a general common sense, but common sense will not work because the general public require magic, not logic. Hence, they will fall on the trap of the speculations. When they fall on the trap of speculation, everybody is rushed to the supermarkets. When everybody rushed to the supermarkets, obviously the transactions increase there. They will pay the amount via currencies or maybe via QR code, maybe UPI, maybe via Paytm. Transactions are automatically increase. That is what the second category, that is speculation demand. So mostly the BTC valuation fall under this category. Other factors that affect the Bitcoin valuation are drivers of interest in the public to use as alternative. If anyone choose that, why we need to pay money cash, why can't we use QR code or this phone pay or this kind of things, then the people will invest in Bitcoin. If their life is very comfortable and just they will purchase morning a milk packet and afternoon something, this kind of things, why they invest in Bitcoins? So that is the reason some situations will be created by maybe by politically, maybe by with some malicious intent or maybe any other thing. So thereby this alternative interest may be increased. Like for example, banking blockades. So banking blockades is nothing but for example, some dating sites are there, some adult sites are there where they can do some transactions. In order to do the transactions, they are using the credit cards and debit cards. So some here banking blockades in this the Visa and MasterCard, these people they said that we are not interested to, or we are blocking so and so adult sites for transaction. So whenever the adult sites were blocked by the Visa and Mastercard, many of the debit and credit cards are secured with these two only. So automatically they don't have alternative. They start accepting the bitcoins. So that is the reason the public is going to the Bitcoin when they are going for the dark web or dark sites. And one more thing is fiat currency. The one who vexed with the fiat currency, so much fake currency, obviously don't want to go there. They are going to the alternative. So because of this banking blockades and fiat currency and some political problems, this interest in the public blockchain users as a, that is interest in the public to use it as an alternative may increase. And sometimes they may use market manipulation. Exchange operators may use bots, that is automated robots, to do the market manipulations. Because of that also the Bitcoin value increases. Price irregularities, the exchange price may be lower compared to the consensus effort, or exchange price may be higher compared to the consensus effort. In such a cases also, this Bitcoin valuation will change. So hence, Bitcoin can be considered as an asset. It is not a regular item. Your hard-earned money will be invested in two ways. One is systematically and one is in the risk. It is by understanding all the above factors, it is recommended to prefer invest your hard-earned money in systematic investigation. If you like risk, then invest in Bitcoin. If you want to, you may get it or may not get it, but if you like risk, then you may go into the Bitcoin investment. You want to be in one particular place, you want to lead a happy life without any tensions, then go for investment in the systematic investment. So this is what the economics of Bitcoin. So we have seen the market forces and primary forces that Bitcoin valuation will make, in which we have seen the two categories based upon the demand and supply. The demand is a convention, that is legitimate demand is transactional demand. To have the transactional demand, the speculation demands was increased. The current BTC valuation is the speculation demand. Other factors that affects the blockchain valuation, the Bitcoin valuation, we have seen. Then finally, we concluded that if you want to make risk in investigation, then go for Bitcoin.